Welcome to Breaking Ground. I'm your host, Devin Kolka. On this show, we bring in the Long Island leaders of the construction, real estate, and business communities. Today's guest is Paul Tonna, Executive Director of the Energia Group, partnered with Molloy College. Paul has been a leader since acting in the Suffolk County Legislature and presiding officer in 1994. We're really excited to have Paul on today. Paul, welcome. Thank you for joining the show. Really appreciate it.
Glad to be here, Devin.
Paul Tonna, Executive Director, Molloy's College, the Energia Partnership, Executive Director of Suffolk County Village Officials Association and the United States Green Building Council, the Long Island chapter, Chairman and Commissioner of the South Huntington Water District, Founding Director of Empire National Bank. I could go on, but we might be here for a long time. Do you ever sleep?
It's something that I've learned. I'm up at 4, I'm out at 10. I sleep pretty soundly from 10 to 4. But the early bird gets the worm.
The early bird does get the worm. So adding to that, Suffolk County legislator and presiding officer from 94 to 05. What made you get into politics?
Yeah. So it's an interesting, so I had a day job. I had a medical screening company, 6 medical centers in the New York metropolitan area. And I had some friends who, it was kind of like a dare. They said, why don't you try running for elected office? So, I didn't give myself much of a chance. But at the time in Huntington, a Republican Party, a party leader named Bobby Lifson, and a councilman named Steve Hackling said, we think this might be actually a good idea. So I told them I'd raise my own money and get my own volunteers. They thought I was going to lose anyway. So they said, that's great. But I got the nomination, and ultimately I won. And so it was really 12 years. It's a great experience to serve in public.
Yeah, I think it's incredible. I certainly don't know if I could do something like that, so I commend you for that. I really don't know too many people that are more involved in the community than you, and I truly, truly mean that. These days, you're spending a lot of time on the Molloy Energia Partnership. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
So this was really the brainchild of the president of Molloy College, Dr. Drew Bogna, and the Vice President of Advancement, Ed Thompson. And it really came from the Roush Foundation doing this great job of putting together this thing called the Long Island Index. And it's basically really great demographics about Long Island as it compares to other suburban counties. And what they found was they had all of this great information about Long Island. And when you compare and contrast things, I'm sure you've done that with girlfriends over the years or something like that. So when you compare and contrast, you're able to see where you stack up. And Long Island wasn't stacking up so great in a lot of different places, especially about how we treat the next generation. And so Molloy College said, we're a small college that gets things right. They do a great job in nursing. They do a great job in social work and teaching. It's a college that's done a fantastic job for Long Island, and they have an external mission. And their external mission is how do you help the social order? How do you look to the common good? How do you build the bottom third of Long Island? And they said, let's get some leaders who are already proven ethical, philanthropic leaders who are already exercising leadership on Long Island. Let's give them some more critical information about how Long Island is formed. And again, the Long Island Index, it really was the Bible of understanding Long Island. So with that, and with getting some really key people, that's how the Energia Partnership was founded.
And we had sat down and we talked about it, and I really look forward to joining the Energia family, because I know it really is a family and everybody stays involved after they've been involved. One of the things I found really interesting is it's not just real estate based. It's really everything about Long Island, from the opioid epidemic to business to politics. Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit more about the topics?
So it's designed, a partner starts, it's an opening weekend at Cold Spring Harbor Labs, and then it's in 2 years, every other month, there's a major issue affecting Long Island. So this is not a business group. This is not a group that's like a Chamber of Commerce. We have a great Chamber of Commerce. We have a great LIA, fantastic with the leadership of Kevin Law. So we already have those organizations intact. This is a group that's basically looking and saying, how do I give back? How do I take my network, take my knowledge, take my passion for Long Island, a fundamental passion for this place, and how do I now give back? How do we join as a partnership? How do I get critical information, transportation, poverty, institutional and structural racism? How do all of these type of issues into play so that we can put things over the top? So our energy of partners are really catalysts for change, for transformative change on Long Island. We represent over 270 boards and commissions. We have a number of them who are elected officials. We have a number of them who are really driving now zoning and planning. A number of them are providing real great leadership in the not-for-profit sector. So it's a who's who program that stays under the radar screen. We want no regional hubris. We don't brag about anything. We just get stuff done. And so it's really great to be part of this partnership.
No, and it's wonderful what you're doing. So you're doing a lot for the community. Can you talk about how do we keep people involved in the community? Right now, we are facing, a lot of residents of Long Island that are leaving Long Island.
Yep.
We want to keep millennials here. We want to keep the older generation here. How do you think we fix this problem?
Yeah, so there are some large, really, than life issues. Newsday's done a great job exposing one of them that, for a white male, I'm not as cognizant of an issue that maybe my African-American brother or sister would be. And that is in their series about an island divided. Institutional and structural racism is a blight on Long Island. It started in the creation of suburbia, when we all of a sudden were zoning people out of areas rather than in. And so one of the very important things is to make sure that we get this right, that we really become a more diverse, a much more representative community for Long Island. The second thing is our economics. So, we should make it easy, much easier for legitimate businesses to get their businesses started on Long Island. In a development area, think about multifamily housing, for example. Our young people are still living in the basements, of their families, or, on the top floor somewhere. We're about 100,000 apartments down. Westchester County has almost 40%, multifamily housing. We were at 17. We've moved that bar now to about 25, 26%. But our young people need cool places to hang out. Marriage now, I'm sure you're not married yet, right?
No.
Yeah, I'm sure you better be getting married now.
I'm close.
I hear that. So the truth of the matter is, though, is that people aren't getting married in their 20s as much. They're getting married in their 30s. They're not having their children until much later. And so there really is a need for housing stock for young people to be able to live in really decent conditions. So that's a problem for us. And then finally, I think that people don't like to talk about it, but Long Island has a real issue with corruption. We've had a lot of indictments, we've had a lot of convictions lately, and corruption really dumbs us down. And so, with institutional and structural racism, with these NIMBYs who are basically screaming at public hearings and stuff to beat back what's essential, which is multifamily housing, and with corrupt elected officials, we find ourselves in troubled times.
And we'll always have the people that come out and disapprove of these wonderful developments. How do we get people to come out to those public hearings and support the development?
It's funny, I look at some of them. So multifamily housing is a perfect example. Huntington Station, Avalon Bay. People came out against it. Part of it was prejudice because they didn't want those people living next to them. It has been a fantastic success story. When you look at the tax revenue that is produced for the town and for the taxpayer, the beautiful apartments that it's been able to provide. So we know that multifamily housing works, even though there were NIMBYs, not in my backyard people. So what we really need is a vibrant YIMBY movement. We need a yes in my backyard. And young people should start to accept the responsibility, the civic responsibility to have their voice heard. They got to vote in local elections. Our senior citizens are the blight of our senior citizens not being able to afford to live on Long Island anymore. Most of these people now, just to pay their tax bill, is more than what it used to be for their tax and their mortgage. So both ends of the spectrum are really being hurt. And Long Island and our elected leaders and our advocates have to keep up the pressure to make sure that we start putting that type of housing stock in place.
And we also see a lot of the school districts getting involved in these. I know TriTech is right now working on doing a fabulous, what I believe a fabulous development in Bayshore, and the district is really pushing against it. There's been some studies done that have showed there's been minimal amount of students that have come into the school district, but the tax revenue for the district has been, you know, massive. How do we get both the school districts on board, and really also the media and the way they represent these developments on board?
So Devin, you're absolutely right. So when you look at school districts, now all of a sudden school districts, all right, or school district leadership is going to determine the zoning you know, of a certain town or whatever else. So, and much of this is just catastrophizing. The fact is that when you look at what a school predicts to be the school kid generation, it is much higher and overinflated than what it actually is. If you look 5 years after the project goes through, when projects are lucky enough to get approved by a town board, who's willing to stand up to community pressure that, you know, is informed or misinformed by fake news and by all of these fake statistics, you will find that there's not even half the amount of school children that are generated. We find that a lot on Long Island. And so, you know, there needs to be constructive dialogue. I think for many school districts, the numbers are changing. All of a sudden, there is a decrease in school population, and are wondering, how do we keep this system going? So I think that that's going to change a little just with the demographics of how many children are being, you know, educated on Long Island. But it really, we need a vibrant advocacy group of people who are willing to stand up and say, we want this in our backyard. We want economic development. We want jobs. And then you're going to have to elect people who are adults, you know, people who can stand up to a little pressure because they know this is the right thing to do for a community. And unfortunately, we don't have a lot of courage among many of our elected officials.
So you talk a lot about millennials and the younger generation. I know you have, I believe, 8 of your own. Tell me a little about your personal life and your kids.
Yeah, so it started with getting very lucky. I married up. So my wife, Carol, she's a glutton for punishment. And so when a 2 can marry a 10, you know you're living, right? So, yep, so I have my son, Peter, who's 39. And he's married to the most wonderful woman in the world, where he married up also, just like his father. And I have 3 grandchildren, 3 boys. So that's fantastic. And then I have a son, Paul, who is a Loyola graduate who's working in the city. Son, John, who is a Villanova graduate, working with a local developer, construction, property management company. I have a daughter, Grace, who's a Loyola graduate, who decided now she wants to be a nurse. So she's at Malloy, which is great school, so she's getting another baccalaureate. A daughter, Mary, who's at Barnard College, which is part of, it's the women's college at Columbia. And then Carol Ann, who's at Adelphi. So we have a lot of college tuitions that we've paid. And then a son, Joseph, who's in sophomore in high school, and a daughter, Lucy, who's in 8th grade.
I can't imagine what Thanksgiving is like at your house, and I might have to swing by one day.
Yeah, we wouldn't even know. We wouldn't even know. The place is packed, and there's always a lot of food. So, you know, that's always on my mind. I think about my children, and you know, I want to live next to my kids. I want to be able to play with my grandchildren. I want to make sure that they have the support of a loving family, brothers and sisters. So, you know, there's real passion for me to make sure that Long Island is a livable place. And it's an affordable place. So it shouldn't be a place where we're trying to collect frequent flyer miles to meet our kids in, you know, North Carolina or in Florida or in Baltimore or something like that. So there's real concern about young people and about making sure that Long Island is affordable for young people. You know, and there have been some really great leaders in it. Mayor Paul Pontieri in Patchogue. I mean, just go to that place. He turned a place, you know, with a lot of help, with a lot of leadership from other people, with a lot of support. You know, he turned that place into Shangri-La. And, you know, Lindenhurst now is looking to do that. Amityville is looking to do some of that. Huntington Village, you know, is well on its way. A couple of roadblocks recently, but, you know, they're doing a pretty good job. So Mineola has done really a great job with making sure that there is multifamily housing and stuff. So I think we're surely seeing that people are starting to say, hey, this is something that's really needed. Multifamily housing, cool apartments. You have the project that Jerry Welkoff is putting together at Heartlands. I mean, if that project goes, you know, ultimately, in the next 20 years, it'll be another 9,000 apartments. So if they can get some of their, you know, governmental roadblocks out of the way, that's going to be a huge economic, you know, driver. So there are plans out there. There are people doing some great stuff. Let's see.
And I heard a statistic the other day that if we built, I believe it was 500,000 apartments tomorrow, that there is enough demand to fill those apartments. Yep. Both market rate and really affordable. Yeah. Affordable is really important. It used to have a negative stigma around it, but I think people have now understood how important it is for the community, and we're seeing more of that.
Yep, absolutely. I'm not sure if it's 500. I heard 100, but okay. You know, maybe it's in between or something like that. And I don't have a great head for numbers. But you know, yeah, we need multifamily housing, but we need, you know, we need more creative parking solutions. Look, we need people to come and invest in Long Island. We're a great place. Where do you get two beautiful bodies of water to be surrounded? Our proximity to New York City, greatest city in the world. You know, so you just go out east and you say you're in the most beautiful places. You know, we're a large agricultural producer, wineries, everything else. So we have some great natural assets here. So you know, we need to make the most of it.
It's a beautiful place to live. I definitely am going to be here my entire life, raise a family here. That sounds good.
Of course, unless your future wife says she wants to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
But let's hope. Let's hope you work that deal out. Yes. That should be in your prenup.
Yes. I guess I'll end it with, what do you think of Long Island? When you really think of the Long Island, what do you think of?
Yeah. So I talked a little about how wonderful this place is, but the thing that really captures my imagination, I have a religious imagination, and I think about the bottom third of Long Island. I think about the people who are really struggling to live on Long Island. And it's not just young people. It's generations of things that have kept people down. We talked a little about institutional and structural racism, you know, and so some people were able to invest, you know, or use the equity in their house and, you know, the mortgage and everything else to get their kids educated. African Americans weren't able to do that because they weren't allowed, you know, you know, not until the Fair Housing Act were they even allowed to own houses in certain places. You hear things like red line and whatever else, but that has downstream ramifications to it, and we're seeing a lot of that. I'm concerned about our food security. There are great organizations like Island Harvest and Long Island Cares and the Inn and other places that are providing food security. But you know, we used to talk about it being the bottom 20%. Now we're talking about the bottom 30%, a third of Long Island. So there are a lot of Long Islanders struggling, you know, just to make ends meet. And they say, you know, what's the number one pressure and challenge in a marriage? It's usually financial. And so that concerns me. That concerns me very much. And that's why I'm glad to be part of the Energy Partnership, people seeking solutions. They're givers. They're people who want to use their networks and, you know, and their resources to make Long Island a better place. I think that, you know, ultimately though, I love Long Island because of the relationships. There are just so many awesome and fantastic people on Long Island. You're a young man, you're going to meet more and more of them. You know, I find that what you give is what you get. You know, if you're a generous person, if you're a kind person, if your default is to trust people, you know, in the long run, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get kindness, you're going to get generosity, and people will trust you. So as a young person, I love this whole idea, you know, of breaking ground rather than breaking bad, right? And I love that you would take the time and the energy to have conversations about probably the place that I care about most about, Long Island. So thank you, Devin.
Thank you for coming on.
Awesome.
Long Island is blessed to have leaders like you, and you are doing a tremendous job, and we thank you for that.
Thanks.